I'll call the Board of Adjustment to order. First, let me announce all decisions of the board are considered final. If there's anyone aggrieved by the decision of this board, they may appeal to circuit court within 15 days of the board's decision. Also, no permits or license can be issued until that 15-day appeal period has expired and no appeal has been filed. For information regarding the board's decision or an appeal to circuit court, the Office of Land Use Administration will be your contact. As you come to the podium, I'll ask that you give your name and address. You direct all your comments and statements to the board, not to others in the audience or to the staff unless staff has a question that we need their assistance. I would ask that you turn off your cell phones or electronic devices or silent, and the board as well, and that reminder to the board to turn your mics on when you make a statement or a motion. There's a 5-minute limitation per speaker, and normally we do 4 in support of an application and 4 in opposition. So if there's more than 4, I ask that you pick your best 4, you might say. And we'll now go with roll call. Okay, starting with Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Golden.
Here.
Mr. Metcalf. Mr. Milling. Mr. Carroll.
Here.
Mr. Morris.
Here.
And I'm William Guest. We have all 7 members present. It takes 5 to affirm a motion either in support or opposition. And therefore we have a quorum and we can proceed with the meeting today. Let me start with the adoption of the agenda. Chair, entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. The agenda is adopted as presented. We're starting with the holdovers. First application is 6431-3924. And this is 960 South Lawrence Street. Is the applicant present? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Your name and address.
My name is Frankie Smith. I live at 3672 Laurel Cherry Court.
Okay, Mr. Smith, staff's recommending that we hold your application again over for another 30 days for some certified survey and site plans.
Yes.
Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're in agreement with the holdover?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there anyone here in the audience today that was either in support or opposition to the application? Okay, therefore that'll close the public hearing on that application. Staff recommends a holdover to the February 7th meeting to provide the opportunity to receive certified survey, site plan, and January 12th is your deadline to get it in on time. Would that work for you?
What was the date to get it in?
January 12th.
January
In a
12th.
couple days.
Well, the surveyors just started Friday. They came on site. They made the initial visit Friday.
So there may be a timing issue. Should we try to go another month beyond that? What do you think from it? All right. So instead of February, how about March? The
Yes.
hardship's on you with the timing.
Yes, sir. I understand. Today is the 10th, so I don't think you'll have it.
Okay. So I would recommend we go for the March time frame. That'll give you plenty of time, and if there's any problems, staff can work it out with you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. We'll go with March's meeting for the deadline. I don't know the exact date. It's probably here in my calendar.
That's March
7th?
7th.
Yeah, March 7th. All right. Chair, entertain a motion for the holdover to the March 7th meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Sorry about the delay, but we'll have to go with that time frame.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Next application is 6432-1319. This is regarding 3650 Old Shell Road. The applicant will come forward, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You might have to pull that up for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Jeff Quinelli, 3751 Shipes Lane.
All right. And your application based on, we had a holdover from the last meeting.
Right.
And I think that was for a variety of reasons. I think also to meet with,
Yeah, no, the biggest reason, well, the only reason that I'm aware of last time is there was a mistake made from my architect as to when they send out the mailing, it didn't go to everybody, so there wasn't anything really past that. He just redone it again to make sure it went to all the right residents.
okay, and the staff still recommending for denial. You want to tell the board why we should consider otherwise?
Well, one thing I'd like to hold over and talk to the neighbors. I understand there's quite a few people that are that sent letters in that I wasn't aware of until the last couple of days. You know, generally don't get that till about a week before this meeting, so I was going to try to hold it over if you guys will let me to talk to the neighbors and go from there.
Okay, February 7th.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Since there probably are individuals in the audience either in support or opposition,
Mm-hmm.
I would like the opportunity to give them a chance since they came today.
Sure, yeah. I'll come back
So if
up.
you'll have a seat, anyone in support that would not have anything to add at this moment? All right. Anyone in opposition today that was here for the application? Okay, sir, if you want to come to the podium, we'll give you opportunity. Your name and address.
My name is Jeff Hunter. I live at 510 Bishop Lane. And I'm opposed to the current site plan layout the way it is right now. There are a few things missing from the architectural drawings that I think would be a benefit for the board to look at. Number one, there's a existing building on the east elevation of that property that's got approximately 24 parking spaces within the lot, but the architectural drawings that I saw on the site plan show an exit coming out to Bishop Lane that dead ends into my front yard. And so you have to turn left or right. And we already have a significant traffic issue on Bishop Lane. Furthermore, Wacker Lane has a big traffic problem too because people aren't using the service roads to cut through between Spring Hill Avenue and Old Shell Road. They're flying down that street. And so right now, the existing building that's occupied that I mentioned before has 7 parking spaces, and it's an entrance only, the way it's marked today. And the site plan here has that as an exit only. And also on the west elevation, which is not shown in the architectural drawings, there are currently 2 exits out of that property onto Wacker Lane, which means you'll be taking traffic from Old Shell Road, dumping it into the neighborhoods on both ends of the development.
Let me ask, those on Wacker Lane, there's 2 businesses listed. I don't think they're part of his property.
They are not, but if you, they're essentially out parcels of that building. Okay, that was a contiguous piece of property before that. Well, before the dentist office was put in there, which is on Old Shell Road. Either way you look at it, there is no barrier stopping people from driving in and out of those. So they've become effectively entrances and exits. So there's certainly I have no issue with the property being developed. I think it's a great idea. I think it needs to be done for a long time, but not at the expense of the neighbors and what's going on the street. So there's no reason at all that the traffic can't be routed around the existing building. There's basically a road that runs in front of the building. It goes there's parking lots go all the way around the building. They could take them in one entrance and out the other, right onto Old Shell Road. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, and the applicants asked the board to consider holdover so he can meet with you and other residents that may have concerns. Are you willing to do that?
Well, I mean, I'm all for solutions to problems. I mean, I'm not anti-development.
Okay, I'm just asking. So
Yeah,
that
I'm
you
all
can
for
hear that.
developing, but I just don't want, 150 cars coming in my front yard every day coming off that property. And plus that there's 7 parking spaces that are at an angle because that's an entrance only now. So my guess is those spaces are in somebody's lease on that other piece of property. So
Okay. Any questions of the board? All right, thank you.
thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Wayne Palmer. I live at 260 Walker Lane. My property is just adjacent to this. Just south of me is an architect's office, and then south of that is a dentist. So we don't have much traffic through there. And I'm against adding another building there, which will bring more traffic into that area. Also, that building that's proposed will block the view coming out of Walker Lane looking east on Old Shell Road. It's too close to the road. I mean, I don't know why you would give anybody a variance and let them change everything on there. No landscaping, nothing. I mean, it just will not fit the neighborhood. My wife and I have lived there for 40 years, and that building was there. The architect's building was there, and when we bought the property, we knew, that was there. So, but we don't want to see any more buildings put on that property to have any more traffic in and out of there. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
The same question I asked the other gentleman. The applicants asked for a holdover so he has the opportunity to meet with residents.
Well,
Do you think that?
I'm not agreeing to that other building. I mean, one way or the other.
Right.
He can do whatever he wants, with his other building. But nobody around there has put another building on that property. I don't see it's B3. You're just supposed to have one building.
Okay. Any questions of the board for this gentleman?
I mean, that's my wife and I bought that property. We've lived there for 40 years. Why change it? So,
All right. Thank you.
all right. You think it's?
Yep. Is there anyone else? Do you have if you will, you have to come to the podium, sir.
My name is Zachary Robinson, and I'm a resident of 3263 Stein Street. And I've spoken to several other residents of Stein Street, and we have not been included in the mailings regarding the site development. I guess it's because we're not within the 300 feet of the site that would mandate that we receive something. But I just wanted to say that I would like to be included in future mailings regarding this issue. And so would my neighbors.
Yeah, well, staff thought there is a distance.
Yeah, the zoning ordinance requires only that it be within 300 feet of the property. So there's no
Right.
way we can just keep arbitrarily sending more and more outside that 300 feet. We wouldn't know who to send it to.
Okay, right.
But I would say that you could still share your contact information with the applicant. That would give him an opportunity to speak with your group as well.
Great. Thanks very much.
All right, thank you. Do we have anyone else in the audience that wanted to speak on this matter? The applicants asked for a holdover, and we wanted to give you a chance to make a statement if you were here today. All right. Questions, comments from the board? We had some comments that came in to the office electronically. Those are on the counter, and I think we received some via email prior to the meeting.
Yes, sir. We have received emails in opposition from Mrs. Mike Gates, Mr. Jeff Hunter, from Robert and Nona Kirsch, Doug Marshall, Ewan Marshall, Julie Biskner, Karen Shyla, Douglas Marshall, Wayne and Becky Palmer, and James Purvis are in opposition. Oh, sorry. And then we have received one letter in support from Linda St. John as well.
Okay. Sir, if you want to come back up to the podium. So do you think by the February 7th meeting, you'll have enough time to meet with,
Yeah.
and you've heard some comments today,
Sure.
obviously.
For sure.
Okay. Once again, any questions of the board for the applicant? All right, thank you. That'll conclude
you.
our public hearing on this today. The applicants asked for, requested a holdover till the February 7th. Yes, sir? We have somebody else that had something? Yes, sir. I can't hear him. What did he say? No, sir. All right. The applicants request a holdover to the February 7th meeting. Chair will entertain a motion. I have a motion, hold it over. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you all for your time today, those of you who came here for this application. It's all on record. All right, thank you. All right, we're on application 6433. This is 1101 Dolphin Street. Let's see here. Yes, sir.
Right, David Schumer, 3213 Midtown Park South. This was discussed last month, and the owner met with the neighbors, and this was the resulting, based on the comments at the meeting and that meeting with the neighbors. The current site plan is what we were proposing. The neighbors were complaining about parking, and now those parking spots on the south side are substandard to the city's requirements, but should be efficient for most cars. He's agreed to put a 8-foot privacy fence along that south boundary as a buffer, and the main noise complaint was they didn't want the squawk box type system, so we added a second. Now that one's also now non-compliant because in order to get the 3 spaces between the 2 windows, we had to have the squawk box. But so we put an order window on the building as a second, so that it would be ordering with a person that would reduce the sounds. And I believe that at his meeting, this satisfied most of the neighbors' concerns, being parking and noise.
And there was a concern about queuing out into the street, so I think that addresses.
We still meet all the queuing requirements from the city, as for having the total number of spaces. Now, just moving the order window up, it reduces that. The queuing between those 2 windows is still not there, but now there's extra spaces between that window and the street.
Right. Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant? All right. You'll have a seat. Is there anyone here in support or opposition of this application today? Are you in support or opposition? Okay. I think you were here last time, right?
I wasn't here, but I wrote an email.
Okay. Your
Rebecca
name and
Hanna,
address?
6 South Hallett Street, and 1105 Dolphin.
Okay. And your question or comment?
Well, we had an agreement about adding a wall on my property.
Which would be the west property?
Correct.
Okay. I remember that too. Is there any other question or comment? You're down here at the podium.
Well, I'm still concerned about the queuing into my driveway. So we had an agreement about some kind of signage to stop queuing in front of my entrance to my driveway.
Okay. All right. Any questions of the board for the resident? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience that was here for this application today? Name and address, sir.
Afternoon. How are y'all? Matt Anderson, 13 South Hallett Street. We did meet with Mr. Quinelli, a little bit before Christmas.
Not
Very-
Mr. Quinelli, Mr. Schumer is that we're talking about. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, we met with Mr. Quinelli.
All right.
Very positive meeting. I think we settled kind of what we were really concerned about, or a lot of us were really concerned about with regards to the noise. So really pleased with that. I heard what she was just saying about the, some kind of division between the driveways, and I have reached out to the traffic engineer, just to let her know that this was coming down the pipeline about having some kind of signage to make sure nobody blocks her driveway. And I think everything's good on our end. So thanks so much for the holdover.
Okay. All right. Mr. Connelly or Mr. Schumer? I apologize. I knew he was your representative.
No, it's okay. The she's right. At the meeting we had with the neighbors, that we did say that we'd put a fence down that side. We told her we'd probably do something like maybe a picket fence like you'd see around somebody's house. You paint white that would make it look nice, but also give a divider. That way people that were turning in here wouldn't be hitting her driveway and go out as far as the city would let us go, because I'm sure there's some sort of ordinance as to how close you can get to Dolphin Street. So,
Okay.
But outside of that, everybody was in agreement with
All right.
what we're doing.
Sounds like the holdover was beneficial then.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions of the board once again? All right. And that, yes, sir.
Sure that the young lady's concern has been addressed here. Has he addressed your concern that you were looking for?
Okay.
I see.
All right. Once again, any other questions of the board for the applicant? All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That will conclude our public hearing on this application. The applicant, based on the holdover, took the opportunity to meet with the residents, and it appears to address their concerns. And I think the main concern was the queuing, the noise, having proper buffer, fence, barrier or buffer around the north side of the property and to the west, is what I understand. And no queuing out into the street and blocking the residents. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
a question for staff. There was an 8-foot fence mentioned, and that's on the south property line. Is that a fence or a wall? Okay, well, that's not allowed, so if we approve this, will that address the 8-foot fence issue?
Well, fences are allowed to be up to 8 foot tall outside of the front setback, so I would need to see the site plan to see how far
Okay, I
to
thought
the
it was
street.
6.
I think historic has a regulation about not allowing fences over 6 feet unless it's adjacent to commercial property, which this site is.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? All right. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval with the addition of that the city erect some signage about blocking of the driveway, and that a fence be added on the west property line.
Okay. I have a motion to approve with those conditions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Any further comment? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Good luck with your project. Thank you all for coming today. Okay, we are now on 6437. Is that correct? All right. And this will be 404 South Bayou Street. Is the applicant here? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Your name and address, please.
My name is Lillian Bush. My permanent address is 404 South Bayou Street, but I currently reside at 500 Palmetto Street.
Okay. And your application is recommended for approval. Are you in agreement with the conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant? Yeah, I have one question. Just in looking at the, and this may be more for staff, but the surrounding buildings, there looks like some are larger than, I mean, they have site coverage probably equivalent, if not larger.
I would assume that's because we're the longest residents there. My family's owned the property since 1929. lots were a lot smaller then.
Okay. All right, once again, any questions of the board for the applicant? And you're in agreement with staff recommendation. Do we have anyone here either in support or opposition to this request today? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
That'll conclude the public hearing on this application. Staff recommends approval, subject to conditions that the applicant's in agreement with. Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve, subject to staff conditions. Mr. Morris?
Subject to staff conditions.
Okay, I have a motion, subject to staff conditions. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any further comment? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Good luck with your project. All right, we're on application 6438, 2217 Hoppin Street. Is that how you say the street name? And Keith Parker. Good afternoon, sir.
How you doing?
Name and address.
Keith Parker, 2217 Hawkins Street, Mobile, Alabama.
Okay, and your application has been recommended for denial, so you want to tell us why we should consider otherwise?
It's a duplex and a single family home. Just trying to make some low income apartments, duplex for some friends of mine.
Okay. Any questions of the board for the applicant? Bless you. How long have you owned this property?
About 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
And was it a single family on this
Single
site?
family, it
or-
was burnt down. So I think it's a single family house.
So you bought it without any structure?
No.
So
Just a burnt down piece.
Right. And you don't think by building another structure of the same size, you could possibly rent it out?
No, what I'm doing, I got a few properties around. I got a lot of people calling me for homes. It's not enough houses in Mobile to rent, so duplex would fit better. I'm getting 100 calls for one property I put up for rent, so I thought duplex would be better.
Right. Okay. Once again, any questions of the board for the applicant? All right. You'll have a seat. Do we have anyone either in support or opposition to the application today? If, sir, which street are you? We were talking about 2217 Hoppin Street. It's not the one you're interested in? Okay. All right. No one in the audience either in support or opposition.
We did receive 2 comments in opposition online from Ricky Wilkerson and Kim Cross.
Okay. Mr. Parker. Oh, man, you made it all the way back here quick. This is kind of one of those that we normally ask this question. Have you met with the neighborhood to see what they want?
No, from the neighborhood. I ain't never talked to my neighbors, told them what I was doing.
So how far you live, or how close to this property?
I'm in Sims now. I got a car lot on Government Boulevard, so I'll be running the area all day.
So, but you haven't met with the neighbors just to
No.
see why there might be some opposition?
Oh, this is my first time seeing this.
Oh, okay. Well, do you think it might be beneficial?
Yes. Go talk to them.
Yeah. All right. Since it's I'm not sure that it'll change anything. It's recommended for denial by the staff, but if you had a chance to meet with the neighbors, and I'm not necessarily promoting this, but if you wanted to have a holdover to do that, I'm not sure.
You still have to prove a hardship.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you meet with the neighbors or not and they want it, he still has to prove that there's a hardship with this property that would not allow it from being used as a single-family dwelling.
Correct. You understand that? So, and this board would have to approve for a holdover based on that information.
Got a question.
Question? Yes, Mr. Morris.
Would you reconsider changing the diagram or the structure of the building to?
Yes.
What would you ask them to change it
It appears to say that single family probably work better. So, that is
to? Now, if he does single family, then he wouldn't be subject to this variance request, correct? So, okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, this will conclude the public hearing on the application for 2217 Hop Street. Staff's recommended for denial. Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with the need, but I'm afraid that it sets a dangerous precedent that I'm not comfortable with, and for that, I recommend denial.
Okay, I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposes? Okay, motion carries. The application's been denied. All right, we're on applications 6439, 4819, 4342, 2484 regarding 1451 Cedar Crescent Drive. Mr. Byrd. Your name and address for the record.
Jerry Bird, Bird Surveying Company, 2609 Halls Mill Road, Mobile.
And this is one of those you're recommended for denial. Tell us
Right.
why we should consider otherwise.
They didn't see it my way when I turned the application in. It's concerning privacy fence and what the ordinance said in 1970, 51 years ago. I wanted to bring up some errors in the staff report. Report stated that there was 875 feet of privacy fence out there. The narrative that we turned in and the plat that we turned in, there's 3,200 feet of privacy fence. Everywhere there's an orange stripe, that's the note that covers the privacy fence. I didn't try to highlight exactly where it was, but it's up and around. And on page 4, the report stated that the buffer of 1972 zoning and the Board of Adjustment action that allowed it to be a mobile home park stated that the buffer to be planted and maintained, of course that the staff report said that and maintained. The buffer just said it needed, the ordinance just said that buffer needed to be planted at the outset of development. Now, it probably was planted. I don't think the city would have issued a certificate of occupancy if it had not been planted. I do know that long ago, when ordinances stated there would be a landscape buffer, they didn't really say how high the plants needed to be. And at some point in time, that got changed because of people planting something 18 inches high, and it took a while for it to grow up when the intent was to be probably 3 feet high all along. In this there is a 10-foot strip around the outside edge. I did not show it on the plat, that's for sure. In that 10-foot, there are some trees, there's some underbrush. There are no mobile homes or outbuildings located in the 10-foot from the property line back. Yes, I said some underbrush. Some of it is clear. It's easy to see the fences through the trees. It's not dense trees. I don't want to mislead you, but there are trees along in there. And the report says that since 1970, full compliance with the fence and buffer has not been met. I don't think there's anybody in planning and zoning that was alive, hadn't even been born yet when that trailer park was first put in there. We're talking 51 years old, and everybody up there is younger than that. Oh, you were born? You were born? Okay. Sorry about that. But anyway.
Compliment them, and they don't take
That's right. I was trying to help them out there. So it's really hard to say that it had never been maintained. We asked for a variance from the requirement of any type fencing on the south property line. The large area, of course, 66-acre trailer park. I've outlined the property to the south. It's been vacant for 51 years, and it's landlocked. There's not even a road in there to it. I cannot see, that's 3/4 of a mile long on that south property line, and there's nothing there. No houses, no anything, just trees on the next property, and maybe some along on our property. So it really
Let me
didn't
ask
think.
staff a question. How did this come up?
We received 311 complaints from neighbors regarding the condition of the fence.
Okay, so there is a fence, it's just in poor condition.
That is my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Jerry, what's the condition on the east property line?
On the south property line?
East
property line?
I agree with you on the south. There's
Yeah,
nothing.
there's
but,
some-
but on the Bayfront Road side, what's there?
Yeah, there's some chain link. I was just shown some privacy fence, poor condition. Some of it down, some of it boards may be missing on that east property line. I think there are some people here in opposition that they live on the east property line backing up there to it. And there probably is a need for a fence there.
Jerry, would your client be amenable to fencing that east property line with a real, with a good fence?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Other than that, I mean, we're not asking for anything different than what's really been going on for the last 10 years, 15 years maybe. I don't know. Of course, they'll tell you that they have called the city, they've called the park and complained, and nothing ever got done. The management on the park is there. They have a management company over them in North Georgia. Management companies for the owner somewhere. I don't know. That's how much I know about the chain of management, and I can see where maybe it gets lost and, nothing gets done for 6 months, and you may get another complaint. Nothing gets done. I can understand that.
All right, any questions for Mr. Bird?
Jerry, how long has the current owner owned it? Do you know?
How long what?
Has the current owner owned this?
No, I don't know.
Has it been? Do you know if it's been a while? Because somewhere I saw a statement or somebody made the statement that it's changed hands several times. I mean, do you think they've owned it for a while, or do you?
I don't know. I knew an owner from way back. I don't know when he sold it and how many times it's changed hands since then.
How about the on-site management?
On-site management?
Yeah, how long have they been there?
I don't know.
All right, any other questions of the board?
Well, I want to point out one thing. I don't know if it's what maybe prompted the first looking around through the park. At the entrance, there are, and it's noted on the plat, there's fence posts there, wooden fence posts, for a 6-foot board fence. Nice row of them, 184 feet long. I don't know who built that fence originally, who stripped it down. We don't own on that side of the road. And we came down, our legal description comes down the west side of the road and across the south end and goes off, and they mention whatever, I've forgotten the name of the street, which is now shown as Sea Pines Drive, but as a city street. So the city owns that road, that fence is built in. Like I say, it probably would look real good with a fence there, but we don't own on that side of the road.
Okay. All right, if you'll have a seat. We have anyone here in support of the application today? Anyone here in opposition? Okay. All right. Well, there's 4 of you, so each of you will take a turn and we'll get your statements. Good afternoon. Your name and address?
My name is Margaret Crawford. I live like when you turn into Sea Pine. I think I'm on the side where he said that they don't own. So whoever was working there last year, they just took the whole fence down after the Hurricane Sally, I think. And they just came and they just dismantled the fence. So now I'm facing a lot of noise and people driving four-wheelers in my backyard. And I was married, but I'm divorced now, so I'm there alone, and it's no protection there for me. So I think the fence should be erected back. They're not maintaining the fence because the neighbor behind me, I went and nailed some boards back up because she's a frightened older lady. So I had a guy to nail the boards back up, and they came and pulled those down. So I'm opposed to them not putting the fence back up. I'm sorry if I'm a little ambiguous today. It's just a lot of things going on.
Any questions for the resident?
Just say, as a
Yes,
correction,
Mr.
I heard you just say you were opposing against not having the fence put back up.
No, I'm opposed to them taking it. Well, I think maybe I read it wrong. They're wanting to just leave the fence down. I need it to be put back up.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, but you're talking about property that potentially may not be theirs, is what you're saying?
Well, it's right, I think it's the east side right as you turn in on. It used to be Sea Pine Boulevard, now they're saying it's Cedar Crescent. I live on Cedar Crescent. It's the house adjacent on that line that when you turn in. Maybe you could look it up. It's the brick house on that line there. 23 and 24, I think those are the lots.
Okay, is that east or the west?
So that's what I couldn't figure out.
It's along that strip. Gary's talking about. I saw it today.
Okay. Any questions of the board once again for the resident?
I do. I have.
Yes.
Is there any fencing around this property, period?
No, are you talking to me or?
Oh.
If you'll have a seat for a minute.
Is there any fencing around the total property anywhere on that property, on that site?
You know, that fence he's talking about at the entrance, we don't own on that side of the road. Apparently her lot is the only lot there.
What side of the road are you talking about you don't own? Because, I mean, it's a possibility to put the fence on property you own, so I don't understand why that's an issue, talking about something that you don't own.
That's right. Well, it looked, granted, it probably looked better with a fence there, but there's those posts are standing there beside, I think, a chain link fence that belongs maybe to her. But it's from Cedar Crescent in about 200 feet is the city street. And we own on one side of it. I guess she owns on the other side where there was a fence.
Which one? Oh, Cedar Crescent. Okay, I see. All right. There's an entrance there. Is this the only entrance into the facility?
That right there.
Gotcha. Okay.
That section.
Gotcha.
We only own across that end.
Yeah.
That's where the public was.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Gary, it sounds like, according to her, that the management of the park actually took that fence down. So, right. Right.
We might be able to overcome that as we go further in this.
Okay.
But in
All right.
today's world, with a permit, we're not allowed to build one over.
All right. Mr. Bird, if you'll have a seat. Do we have others? Yeah. Sir, are you here for this one? All right. I'm going to let you come down because you've had your hand up almost every application. We'll make sure you get an opportunity. Your name and when you come down, your name and address.
How you doing? My name's Edward Franklin. I'm own a house on 1400 Tampa Drive. I actually grew up.
Yeah, gotta get closer.
I'm actually 58 years old, so I kind of seen the whole thing develop. I used to play in it when it was a field. I saw when they developed it, they had a fence that went all the way down South Boulevard, Cedar Crescent, and all behind the homes that were facing Jacksonville that were attached to that property. I even remember, I think, was that house completed right there on the corner?
What kind of fence? You said there was a
wood fence.
Okay, not chain link.
Not chain link, privacy fence.
Okay.
There was a house somebody was trying to build. I don't know if they ever completed it in that little squared out section closest to the bay. And I think they couldn't complete it because of what was going on, but I'm not sure. They were losing a lot of stuff in the construction process. So as the neighborhood changed, I noticed the fence started deteriorating worse and worse. So to be in all fairness, as the clientele's pay level and everything dropped, the fence dropped. So I think they do need to keep that fence in place because it will provide a barrier for the families who live adjacent to it as well. Because in every space that there was fence that came up missing, like for instance where the couple was trying to build a home, I don't think they ever completed it. I think that might have been a factor.
Okay. Any questions of the resident? All right.
Got a question. You say how long you been there?
The house has been there since it was a military base. I grew up there as a kid with my aunt, whose house it used to be on to, but she gave it to her sister, which was my mom. And I think I'm 58 now, so the whole time.
And too, originally when they developed this property, it did have.
I watched it when it was just a field because we used to jump the ditch to go over there and play. And then
this was originally there in the original construction of the site.
Yeah, right. I watched the whole construction come up from nothing to something. Okay. I think the original owners own a place over on not government, but off 65, the flooring place. 8 to 8, don't be late. I think that's the guy who owned the property originally.
All right. Any questions of the board once again? Thank you again. All right. We have for two more. I should say we have time for two more. Good afternoon. Your name and address.
Good afternoon. Hi. My name is Bettina Bailey. I live at 3206 Bayfront Road. We are at east side along the bay. We're on Bayfront. The original owner, yes, as he was speaking, Don Williams in the 70s. The trailer park has been sold multiple times over the years. It got to a point where we couldn't keep up with the current owners. I have lived there my entire life. It is property passed down from my great-grandparents, family compound. I live in one house. My sister's next door. My mom is next door to her. We've known just about every aspect that's going on in the trailer park. And we're not opposed to the trailer park being there, but we just ask that they do what they say that they will do. There was trouble back in the 80s with wetlands being filled in that was not supposed to be filled in. Over the last 20 years, we've had issues with the trailer park just going down as far as quality, the upkeep of the entire place. There's no problem with it being there, but we were told as residents along Bayfront Road that there would be an 8-foot privacy fence behind our property, to separate the properties because of the zoning, that it was different. Their zoning was different than our zoning. I don't know all those rules and regulations, but the fence that is there now is a wooden privacy fence. After, depending on the hurricane that comes through and tears down the fence, that you might have to argue 6, 8, 10 months with them. You know, look, this section has been blown down. Will you please fix it? They might come pick it up off the ground and jack it up 2 feet off the ground. Okay, but there's your 8 foot. Well, you've got, 2 feet where we've had people crawl through up underneath our fence. We've had people go over our fence. We've had animals get in our yard to fight with our animals. Gun battles, literally a month ago, there was 2 or 3 men running along the fence line. Gunshots, 1:30 in the morning, jumping the fence behind my mother's, to get away. We don't even know what happened, but we just need this fence for safety reasons, for privacy reasons. It would benefit.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes, sir.
Is your concern just that east property line from north to south? Just a straight line. Well, there's a jog in there, but that would
that little jog right there is right there at my mother's. The whole entire area. I mean, yes, definitely our strip.
That's your primary concern?
That is my primary concern. Yes.
Is running parallel to Bayfront.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions of the board?
And I know everything that I just said, that it truly may not have anything specific to do with what Mr. Byrd is representing. I feel like this was a little wordy, where to me I wasn't quite sure of what the proposal is. So, excuse me for that if I misunderstood it, but it has been a constant battle over the years with, dealing with sea pines.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I hear you.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about ongoing except but we can certainly make provisions to keep and maintain a fence. But inside of it.
I know. Oh, yeah, I know that. I wouldn't. Okay. That's not.
I wish we could.
But the thing is, yes, we will maintain it, but they don't, and they have not. So that's our main concern.
Let me ask you a question. Besides the east side, all along the north, where there's residents, was there a fence back from your memory along that whole section?
Yeah, I will say yes.
It sounds like only the south section was the one that didn't have anything.
I don't recall on the south section there ever being a fence. But I know if you drive down South Drive, which will be the north side, is that correct? Mr. Bird? Okay. The north side, if you drive down South Drive and, you're scanning in, the yards in the back, you can see a chain link fence at some locations, and then you can see the wooden privacy fence. So I do want to say in the beginning it was a chain link fence.
There is fencing along that side.
Yes, there is. Now, if that's what you want to call it in some spots, because it's big sections are missing and fallen, have fallen down or whatnot. But
okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
All right, you gentlemen have anything? Is there a ditch, staff? Can you tell us based on your information? Okay. All right. Any other comments, statements today? Here, if you will, come down here so we get your comments. I'm sorry.
Like I said, we were there. I've been there for 23 years, and there was a chain link fence. So we came to the meeting, and they erected the wooden privacy fence.
When did you come to the meeting?
Back in 1999.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the first meeting that I.
So they did put up a
They put the wooden privacy. It was a chain link. So now I just wanted to get it a perspective. If it's not their property, then I'm responsible now to erect the fence myself.
Okay, I think that'll have to be determined based on site survey.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other comments, questions today? All right. Questions or comments of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, I guess, for staff. So what was originally approved was a storm fence of undetermined height.
It was originally rezoned, and then after it was rezoned, it was approved by variance for use as a trailer park. When it was rezoned, it had to be a storm fence and a 10-foot buffer. I've always thought a storm fence was a wooden privacy fence, but I just went to Google, and Google says it is a chain link. So originally, it was a chain link fence and a 10-foot buffer zone be planted. And then
But no specific height.
And then in 98, the Planning Commission recommended that be replaced with a 6-foot privacy fence instead of the chain link and the buffer. In 1998, the Planning Commission recommended privacy fence.
But then but the variances were denied. And was the variance to have the
That is the rezoning and special exception apparently expired. Is that what that?
Well, they were trying to do a metal panel fence.
The second ones did, but the original approval was still in effect. That required no.
Which is a storm fence and a 10-foot buffer.
So a chain link fence with a 10-foot buffer.
With a buffer, 10-foot landscape buffer.
No height on the fence necessary. Okay.
So was there ever a requirement to have a wood privacy fence in any of the last 20-some years?
The original zoning ordinance did specify that the vegetative buffer had to be a minimum of 6 feet high.
Okay. All right, Mr. Berg, can we get you back to the podium for a minute? So we can sort through what you might have.
Was the question ever answered?
So I'm not sure it's a very.
Marie, did you ever say, is there a privacy fence required or allowed or what? Was it?
The storm.
The current zoning ordinance and variances that reign over this property have the storm fence, which is the chain link, and the vegetative buffer.
Okay. What about the height of the chain link fence? Was there ever a set height?
I believe 6 foot. There was just a height for the vegetative. There
So
was
the chain
no
link
height
fence,
specified.
we don't know if it was a 4 foot or 6 foot.
No, sir.
It wasn't even, it didn't say 6 foot. It just said storm fence.
Okay, so are we to, other than enforce the buffer, having a storm chain link fence?
You can substitute, like it says on page 3 of the staff report, in 98, the commission, the city, allowed a 6-foot privacy fence to take the place of a storm fence and a landscape buffer. So it is my opinion that you have the legal right to, instead of forcing them to do a chain link in 10 foot, you can replace that requirement with a privacy fence. Or you can say, there's a hardship and they don't have to put anything.
Okay. So it sounds like this has been before the board and planning a few times, especially when they requested the variance.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Staff, or Doug, are we, can we make them repair any of the existing fencing that's down?
They have the
of
legal
whatever
obligation
kind?
to do that anyway. They have the legal obligation, if it's a condition of approval from 30 years ago.
But can we re-specify that? I mean, can we?
The city can go through the enforcement.
Right. Because I think it's unreasonable to ask them to put up a new fence around the entire property, frankly. But
I don't know. It was a requirement when it was rezoned.
But if they repaired what's there, that would.
Oh, sure.
That would do the same thing.
If they repaired it and had a 10-foot landscape buffer. If it's a chain link fence,
I understand.
It has to have a 10-foot landscape buffer according to the original approval.
According to that, right. Okay.
If I'm an owner, I'd rather have a privacy fence than have to maintain that buffer. But
yeah.
No. Yeah. And
You had a question or comment?
well, I just wanted to comment. Yeah. 1970, what was proposed and what was constructed, I believe, was approximately 450 to 500 mobile home spaces. And the current ownership management company has told me they're going to stop at 135. So the mobile homes that are there are spread out. I could see where a privacy fence would have been necessary if you had had one every 50 feet or every 40 feet going down the road. But if you've got one here and one 250 feet down here, a privacy fence around the whole thing seemed like overkill. But I mean, that's what's there now. Is they're scattered.
Go back to the overview which shows the residents.
Is that what's there now, Jerry?
There may be some addresses. If you flip back to not the green one, but
the aerial
photo,
photo,
that one, those are there. I rode through there myself and highlighted the ones that were there.
All right, let's go back to the aerial.
Okay.
And even if that's what's there now, and I don't mean to be argumentative with Jerry or anybody, but if that's what's there now, they could still go in and put 100 more in the future.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Byrd.
Yes.
So your request here is to waive the protection buffer, really irrespective of the fence.
Well, we wanted to go back to chain link fence. We could leave it like it is and maybe do some repair privacy fence that's there. And down on the east end, well, that's a repair down there too. But
I mean, I think my understanding is you're under a legal obligation to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know who told the residents down there that it would be an 8-foot fence. What was done that Doug was citing was 6-foot privacy fence, and 6-foot privacy fence is everywhere else. There may be some 8 feet down there. How it was required, I don't know. Maybe it was an offer by the ownership at that point in time.
So what have you been hired to do? What are we here for?
I don't know.
So what's the position of the current ownership? Is it to?
Well, they didn't want a privacy fence because storm, winds, any time of high winds will blow it down and damage it. Certainly, I've got one in my backyard that's been there for like 10, 11 years that needs to be replaced right now because evidently the treatment that was in there that I bought at Lowe's at that point in time wasn't good enough. It's weathered. There's boards broken. It's easy to tear it down. That's the reason they didn't want to do privacy fence.
How tall is the privacy fence that when you surveyed this site? How high are they?
Down at the east end, I think there's some 8 foot. The rest of it's 6 foot.
Okay, how about chain link fence?
Chain link. There's some 5 foot in there. There's a good bit of 4 and 6. I believe that site was originally fenced with 6 foot chain link fence. There's sections of it all along. Yeah, I think the post had rusted off in a wet condition. It's laid over some. It's still there. Some of it's erect. It looked like a good chain link fence. Maybe, with a bunch of posts, a whole lot of posts. That could all be cleaned up somehow or the other. But some of the neighbors have put in 4 foot chain link fences behind the privacy fence that's out there.
Okay. All right. Staff, board, do you have any other questions, comments?
I do, staff, trying to understand, there is a law that saying they're supposed to have a fence there, period. Am I right? From the original, am I right?
Yes, sir, that is
And
correct.
whoever come in and buy it out should maintain that same law, am I right? Respect that law.
Yes, sir, that is
Yes,
correct.
and a 10-foot landscape buffer was the condition of approval for the zoning in 19.
And I do have a point of clarification. The original zoning amendment did specify that buffer be 8 foot tall within 2 years after being planted. There is that. The vegetative buffer had to be 8 foot tall within 2 years of planting.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. I think everyone's had an opportunity to speak, and I think we've got all the information we can from you. This is probably one of the more confusing ones we've had in a while, based on the age of the property and the conditions. So the one question I have, which I'm not sure, but I would think it's at least a 6 foot chain link fence was a requirement at the time with a 10 foot green space barrier, right? A buffer.
That is correct, yes, sir.
So we can at least require that at this time today.
Yes, sir. If you want to maintain what they currently are required to have, then that's
okay. Now, the privacy fence is at no point ever referenced in any previous variance or requirement.
It was, however, those approvals were allowed to expire, so those conditions were not locked into the property.
Okay, how did they expire? Explain that.
They tried to rezone and get new variances in the late 90s. They got approvals with a wooden privacy fence buffer instead of the chain link and vegetative buffer, but then did not pursue the finalization of the rezoning or permits for the buffer.
So they never installed
Correct.
the fence. Or if they did, they didn't
Expired without being acted upon.
Okay. All right. I guess that's why it was so confusing. All right. That concludes our public hearing on this application. Staff's recommended for denial, which would mean that they have to go back with the buffer and a chain link fence at minimum, and or repair those areas that were compliant, just needing some kind of.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that that the entire north property line be either a new 6 foot chain link fence or either properly repaired portions that are there, and that the entire east property line be a wood privacy fence with 6x6s. I don't know if we can do that, but that would certainly keep it up better. And that's my motion.
Okay. Let me ask this: there's a series of residents on the west side that.
No,
Well, if they pull it.
no,
pull
there's
it up
nothing on the
earlier,
west side except the street.
There's just a street there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing. It's on the other side of the street.
Can you pull up the overhead so before we complete this motion? Go to the next one where it shows the actual resident. There you go.
Oh, along. Oh, okay. the directions down there are so confusing.
All right, so in my opinion, I see property, residents on east and west, and on the north property.
That's correct. I'd like to amend that motion to include that west property line. I thought that was facing the street. And I'm not addressing in the motion the vegetative buffer, but definitely at least a 6-foot privacy fence on, is it 6 or 8, if I can ask, that was promised to you on Bayfront? Make it an 8-foot fence.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
For Mr. Metcalf, when you're saying you're not addressing the vegetative buffer, you're just saying that you're saying that you don't believe that's required, or that it just falls back to what?
That the buffer is still there, but not the planting.
Right, but are you saying that it should fall back to what what was originally approved? We're requiring the plantings in the 10.
No, I'm not. I'm not requiring them to plant, just to put in a new fence.
Okay.
How about, I think your comment is to maintain, if they can't cut down or clear.
My personal feeling is we have an out-of-town owner who is not paying attention to this at all, and that has a management company, wherever the breakdown in communication is, that's not following through and doing things that were supposed to be done there. And it's definitely seems like it's a nuisance to the neighbors, and I think we need to do something that forces them to do what they're required to do.
Well, Mr. Milling, you want to make an amendment to my motion?
I support your motion, but I do think they need to have some type of buffer as well.
Okay, let's start.
Huh? I would like to make a
Mr. Metcalf.
Yeah.
Your motion is for an 8-foot on the east side with hopefully 6-foot supporting posts.
Yeah.
6-foot chain link the entire north and west property boundary. And then the request is that you modify it to include maintenance of.
I'm not modifying it, but someone else certainly.
Well, it's your motion, so we have to. I would ask that you modify it to include a green space.
Well, there is a green space, but see, I don't.
Maintain it.
Well,
as per the requirements originally.
I guess my problem is I don't know how to define it.
I think it had to be 8 foot tall within 2 years of the original development.
But what does that mean? Does that mean every 2 feet there's a tree or a bush? I don't know. That's my only problem.
A vegetative buffer has to be of such density that you cannot see through it. So,
Gary, what's that distance on the north side? East and west. 2,500 feet? Well, that's what the requirement is. So I'll amend my motion to that.
All right.
What is your motion? I'm sorry, this is confusing to all, but it all depends on what Jerry's asking for. The condition now, as previously approved, is the chain link fence and 10-foot landscape buffer surrounding the entire property. All he's asking for is a relief from the requirement of the landscape buffer. As we see it here today, there's no requirement of a 8-foot high privacy fence anywhere.
I didn't see that.
All right.
Is there?
Or 6 foot either.
No.
So I think. Yeah.
So there's no requirement.
But we can require it.
No, I think the one relief.
No.
Mr. Anderson, I think the one relief he's asked he would receive based on his motion is not having a fence on the south boundary. That's the only area in which he doesn't have a fence, and we are not proposing one.
Change the original approval that the fence on the south, the buffer and the fence on the south be removed.
Okay.
And replace that with a wooden privacy fence on the east.
Right.
I just want to make sure we're legally doing
that's what I want
right.
to make sure too. Okay. So the motion will be no fencing or buffering requirement on the south side. And we put in a wood privacy fence on 8 foot on Bayfront Road. And is he asking for any additional relief on the north side, or we just go back to what was originally a requirement, which was a chain link fence and a vegetative buffer?
I think we need to specify it's a 6 foot.
What? Excuse me, 6 foot.
Yeah. Just to be clear.
So what we'd be doing is restating what was originally supposed to be done anyway.
You don't, if you want the chain link fence and the buffer on the north and west side, you don't have to say anything about that whatsoever.
Okay.
Just say your motion is to approve with the condition that the east line, the 8 foot privacy, and the south line be deleted.
Okay.
Or removed.
And then it's up to enforcement of the city
Bingo.
to do that. So we don't have to. Okay.
Bingo.
Good deal. Can I?
Quick question about that. What if, and I heard what Mr. Bird said, what if the vacant property to the south is developed at a later date?
Good question.
Then, can we put a condition that says upon the development of that then there would have to be a privacy fence, or is that just dealt with if the development comes up in the future?
That's like saying you don't have to build a sidewalk on your new development until 5 years down the road. How are you going to enforce
Police that? Yeah.
So that's certainly an issue. Is that property on the south, those 2 lots, ever going to be developed?
But I guess, if somebody's going to develop that, then they can deal with that issue at that time.
They can put up their own fence and leave some of the trees that are already there.
Not a fence there.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to withdraw my previous motion and restate a motion.
Please.
Requiring an 8 foot privacy fence along Bayfront Road and the removal of the condition of a fence and a vegetative barrier on the south property line.
One clarification: if there's a wooden fence, no buffer is required. Is that right?
On the west, on the east side.
Yeah.
Just the fence, no buffer.
Yeah, that's correct.
No landscape.
That's correct. No landscaping on the east side.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I do too.
Second.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Motion carries.
You understand that, Jerry?
Those of you that are here, if you got questions, I'm going to have to defer you to these folks. That's what I said. I knew you were going to have a question. So, I got to defer you to staff, okay? We got to continue with the meeting.
And just as a point of clarification, because those conditions are also part of the rezoning ordinance for the site, they do have a rezoning application pending before the Planning Commission later this month to be heard, to update those conditions as well to match, hopefully, what was approved today.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
All right.
curious about one
Sir,
thing.
you got to direct your comments to them. All right, we're on application 6440. Okay. All right. Mr. Metcalf is going to leave, have to depart. Is there anyone on the board that has to recuse himself on the next application? Okay. Before you leave. Thank you. All right. Let's go back to application 6440. And I'm not going to read all the addresses here. It's just West Highland Avenue.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Your name and address, sir.
Marcus McCrory, and I'm counsel for L&A Investments. Mr. Levy Seals is here for that company.
Your name, sir? And address. Okay. And this application, based on staff's recommendation, is for a holdover to the February 7th meeting. Have you been advised? Were you aware of that?
Not until we got here, Your Honor.
Okay. And I guess they want more of a narrative explaining why the variances were to be requested in site plan, depicting all existing proposed improvements to the site, is what the staff's recommended. All right. You think that would be worthy of your time to wait until the next meeting to allow that? I know time is always of essence for projects.
When we first purchased this property, it was, I guess, the coronavirus had started or whatever, and my property buying a permit from Pritchard, Alabama. They sold us some permits, and we still haven't got our money back from. Only thing we're doing is remodeling homes that is existing, that's been there for a long time, and the neighborhood is all supportive. Everybody's excited. We got a waiting list of people looking to move in. You know, only thing we're doing is just remodeling single-family homes.
Okay, well, let me ask staff something. It looks like the main thing would be obviously the site plan. Do you have anything?
Well, the site plan that was submitted was a little unclear. Building permits have been applied for to add a 10 by 24 addition to each of these structures, and it was unclear if the site plan submitted, if that included the addition or not. And then there was no narrative to explain that as well.
Okay, you want to explain the additions?
The addition, yes, sir, we had added like an extra bathroom, and then we came out just with a laundry room. It had like a restroom on the back, and we just added one restroom and a laundry room. That's the only thing we did. Stayed in the existing structure.
Okay, so, but they don't have site plans to.
Are those additions on these buildings in this site plan that was submitted?
Yes, ma'am. Go straight out.
Okay.
And this really have created like a hardship on our family. It's like a family.
We can't consider economics as part of our review of an application.
The only thing we're doing, I'll do straight to the board. They just trying to just remodel the homes for families that waiting on the waiting list. And like I said, they stopped us. Yeah, we've been on hold ever since May.
Okay. And are any of these occupied?
No, sir.
They're all vacant and ready for you to get going?
Yes, sir. Just ready to get back to where we've been stopped working.
Okay.
That's last year.
All right. Is there any other information staff would need? Should we consider this?
If the site plan is an accurate depiction of the structures as the applicant would like for them to be, with including the structures, then that's up to the board if you would like to consider it.
Okay. Mr. Morris, you had a question?
Yeah, according to the drawing I'm looking at, the addition is in the back of the house.
Yes, sir. It was already.
Not shown on that one, though.
Yes, it's showing on it. It's showing, if the house going straight out, you can go like, the house goes straight like this, and it has like a little restroom in the back.
Okay, just squared it off.
Square it up. It's the only thing we did is square it up. We've been approved with the electrical, the HVAC, the plumbing, everything is clear to go. We just ready to get back to work. Like I said, we've been off and working ever since May. So we got so much invested. We got the neighborhood excited. Even the mayor, he got something across from our property that they finna get a bill. So they came over, they very, excited about what we're doing. The only thing we do is buy and try to build up the neighborhood. This home, this house, that's the only thing we're doing. And these houses they've been existing homes for a long time.
Okay, Mr. Morris, any other questions? Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions?
Just have a quick one. I know they're all vacant now. Have they been vacant for a long time, or is it?
Well, actually, when we first brought the property, we had a that was staying there. So that was like 2 years ago. So we had to get everything, get them cleared out, start working.
Okay. So
When we first brought them, we ended up buying some permits from Pritchard. Pritchard said they was their house. So we got our permits from Pritchard. So we started working, then come find out it was in Mobile, so we had to go through the process
I got you.
all over again to get back to work. So now we just at this point here, so if we can get past here, we can start back working, with my guys.
So you bought these homes with the idea of renovating them all and bring them up to a different standard and then releasing them?
Exactly, yes, sir. Just bring them out, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Work my home, yes, sir.
So the variance, let me ask, the variance is because this is R1, but this is like just one continuous property with.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you buy these one by one, or were they bought as one big lot?
Bought them all. 13 of them.
So it was already a multi.
Yeah, it's already multi.
Yeah, it seems to be that somebody went through and combined all of the pieces. They might have been on individual properties at one point in time, and then somebody went and combined them without going through the proper procedure.
Okay. Already, one parcel.
Okay. That's just kind of for us to think
Well,
about as we discuss.
Mr. Chairman, if I can
Yes.
point out, this part of the city was annexed in 1956, and according to the aerial photographs in 1940, West Highland Avenue had not even been constructed and there were no houses here. But then by the next available aerial of 1960, all of these houses had been constructed and the road built. So they're pretty old.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions of the board? All right. And I could say, based on the fact we have no one in the audience, that there's no one in opposition or support. Do you have anything to add, sir? You're here to represent the.
No, sir, I think my attorney has spoken very well for me here today.
All right. Well, I would say this. So you want us to proceed today? Yes, sir. Okay. All right. So the applicant, I would say the hardship, based on what you stated, is it's always been a single lot since for some time, and you're just trying to improve these facilities. See if there's anything. The grass parking. Tell me about that. That's the one thing that I can't necessarily see a hardship.
Like in the back, it just got grass. If you guys want us to put gravel behind, with the parking, because we got like enough parking on the side and back.
Okay.
They need us to put gravel on the backyard or whatever.
Well, gravel is usually not our preferred parking service. So.
Are there curb cuts? I was just looking at a picture. Well, but curb cut, it looks like there's a curb on the sidewalk and there's no curb cut.
Driveway. Are there driveways for the houses?
It's in the back street, but it can go in.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
So all the parking has been in the rear of each of these structures, and it's always been on the grass?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All weekend on the grass.
Okay. Well, I'm okay with the multi-family residence and all that, but I'm not too sure about having grass. I mean, you're trying to improve the property. Having on-grass parking is just going to, depending on the weather here, may not be the best, depending on the, drainage and things like that. But we've looked at alternative. We've had gravel parking in the past, but it's usually in older areas. Do we know what the properties in the adjacent areas have for parking services?
Well, the zoning ordinance does allow gravel surfacing for driveways for single-family driveways. But it does require improved surfacing for multifamily. So that's up to the board of how you'd like to consider it.
Okay.
I'm assuming, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we require them to do asphalt or paving, that's going to come into some drainage engineering problems, which is going to take it to a whole different level.
Right. Yes.
That's my concern in that area back there. Behind those houses, what's back there? Wooded area, creek. Gulf Lumber Yard and all of that's back up in there on the other side of the street.
It's a container yard behind it, but it's a street right behind. There's nothing back there.
Okay.
But a road, but a street.
That's my concern. If we move without a site plan, that's my concern, because I don't want the residents to come in and buy and then we have a problem.
There's no resident.
I know there's no one in there now, but you're trying to get some tenants in there.
Well, Mr. Davis, my thought, and for the members of this board, is that to have a concrete apron curb cut that's compliant with city ordinances and engineering, and maybe a gravel drive parking area, the property to Cedar Lane, is that the primary entrance point?
It looks like we're just maintaining existing parking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
approve it.
Because it's coming from behind. I don't.
That'll be, it always comes up in the city. It's going, I'm sure it's in our staff recommendations, review by the floodplain management, requirements for the city, that they'll have a review of those as it relates to the drainage. So no matter what you do from an improvement standpoint for parking, they'll have to have some review. I would propose, I'll make a motion that we approve the variance for the multifamily residence with understanding that the site plan is for the structures is current and accurate, compliance with all other city ordinances that relates to those, that the parking surface be a aggregate material, that you have a curb cut that's concrete apron, and traffic recommends more than one than more than one, because the fire department has to have access to this.
I had no problem with that.
And then obviously compliance with the floodplain management and the other ordinances as it relates to the stormwater. Yes.
We are, Logan Anderson here is looking at the Google Street View of Cherry Lane or McGowan, which is on the back side of the houses, and it appears that it's not even paved itself. So by requiring, standard improvements from an unimproved public street, that could be a challenge. And then on the other side, where they're facing Highland, it looks like Highland itself has curb and gutter. In fact, no curb cuts at all for any of the houses.
So that'd be on-street parking there.
Right. But the Google Street View is showing that the houses do currently have access from the rear with parking just on existing surface that's there.
Yeah, it looks like off of China Berry there might be some gravel or some surface.
That's what the road is, gravel in the back.
Right.
It's already like a gravel road.
So therefore a concrete curb and apron would not be appropriate.
I think it would be out of character and maybe not relative to the work that he's trying to do.
Okay. Then based on that, I'll amend my initial motion to do gravel or an aggregate material on the parking surface and drive, and compliance with all other city ordinances and codes. Chair, entertain a second.
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? A motion carries.
Thank you, Chief.
You've got to coordinate with the city. Don't let anything slip that they got to come back, because you've already had that with Pritchard once.
Just trying to get some work done. We
All right.
appreciate everybody.
Thank you. All right,
Thanks,
we
sir.
have other activities today?
Thank you, sir.
Oh, yes, sir. We have the election of officers.
Okay. Well, we start with Vice President. I'll entertain a motion for someone to be appointed for Vice President. Okay, I'll second that motion. We have a motion by Mr. Morris,
Sanford Davis.
be the Vice President. All those in support of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, and then we'll accept the motion for chairman or president. I guess it's chairman.
I think it's your honor or Jesus from what
No.
I just heard in this last application.
All right, I'll accept the motion for the president.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate William Guest.
Okay, we have a motion for William Guest. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain, because I'm obviously the person that, I'll accept the motion, and then we'll continue as we have for the last couple of years.
Thank you.
All right, any other business? All right, that concludes. Thank you all. Hopefully we meet in person again next time. Everybody stay well. That was a very difficult.